Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for registering and being part of this webinar today, put on by Suicide Prevention Australia, the Lived Experience Network's leadership group is here, represented by myself and Hayley Purdon. Good morning, Hayley. It's great to have you here. Thank you for taking an interest in such a topic that is so important, and we are so blessed to have two exceptional people from the United States of America with us, Kevin Briggs and Kevin Hines. I had the pleasure of hearing both of these men speak on Tuesday at the New South Wales Police Mental Health Intervention Team Conference. And not only is their story inspiring, but I also learned so much from it. So to Kevin, thank you very much for being here.
Oh, glad to be here.
So this morning, just a few housekeeping things. There's a bottom on the box, on the left-hand corner, I beg your pardon, you'll see a little box. You can type questions to the panel. Our team may even ask you as we go along. We also have a number of questions which get sent through, which is just fantastic. The interest that's been shown so far in this morning's webinar. And we'll try to get through as many as we can, but as you appreciate, our time is limited. We have to finish at 12 o'clock. But we'll do the best we can, and again, thank you so much for being involved with us.
And please remember that even though it's really important to talk about suicide, there's nothing more important than your own self-care. So if this brings up any difficult emotions for you, please make sure you talk to a trusted family member or a friend. And we also have phone numbers for our partners. They're displayed at all times on the left-hand side of your screen. Please don't hesitate to contact one of them.
So this morning's program, we're going to have a little brief overview from each of us as to how we became involved in the webinar, how we've been affected by suicide. And I'm going to start off. As a police officer for 20 years in South Wales, I developed anxiety and chronic depression. After those mental illnesses, I became suicidal, and I lost my career for those illnesses. Fortunate, I was received some great care. Support from my wife was phenomenal, and to this day is still phenomenal. And it took me some years, but I'm now happy to say that I have recovered from those illnesses. I no longer suffer from any form of suicidality, but I share my passion to help first responders, in particular the police, about the day job, how to build up resilience to the issue of suicide. And I am passionate about what I'm doing with suicide prevention and soldier on. So, Hayley, would you mind just giving us a brief overview of your involvement here today?
Yep, thank you for sharing that with us, Al. I could list all the mental health issues that contributed to me thinking that I had no other option than to kill myself, but I don't think that's going to be very helpful. So I'm going to tell you just a bit about the feelings that made me feel like or believe that suicide was my only option. I guess it started in high school for me. I felt like no one understood me, like a lot of teenagers do, and I felt like I didn't belong. All these feelings deepened, and I took them on as my identity, and I started to believe that was who I am. Any positive self-worth and self-esteem disappeared over the years, and all I was left with was overwhelming sadness and paranoia. I felt terrified about being found out, about being weak or being damaged in some way. And so the panic escalated. It got to a point where my mental health was affecting my life, and I found that I was unable to cope. Dark thoughts occupied my mind 24 hours a day, and I just had no way of coping with these thoughts and these feelings. And it was then that dying became my only option. Since then, I've found hope, and I've turned my life around and built up my self-esteem. And I've learned how to cope with life. Also, since then, I've been able to identify things that possibly would have helped me, would have prevented me from going down that dark road and saved me all those years of unhappiness. And I also can see things that would have helped me in that time of crisis when I turned to suicide. So what changes I would like to see? I want to see early intervention. We teach our children so many wonderful skills, but we don't teach them how to cope with life and with the responsibility that being an adult comes with. I think maybe we need to foster emotional development of our children and teach them that difficult emotions like sadness and anxiety, they're just a natural part of life. I want to see continuity of care. When I presented at the hospital following my suicide attempt, I denied to everybody that it was a suicide attempt, and so I was released and there was no follow-up. So I think that there's a real opportunity there to connect people with services when they present with possible suicide behaviours. I also want to see an increase in community awareness around mental health issues and suicide. When you're in that depressed mindset, it's really hard to reach out and open up to somebody and say that you're struggling. So I want to empower the community to be able to notice that in the people around them and to be able to say, I may not understand what you're going through, but I'm here for you and I want to see you well. I suppose the biggest reason why I'm here today is I want to see a world without suicide. And I believe that starting a conversation like this puts us one step closer to doing that. So now I have the pleasure of introducing you to an extremely inspirational man. His story provided me with a lot of inspiration during my period of recovery. So I feel extremely blessed to now pass over to Kevin Hines to provide an introduction.
Thank you very much, Hayley. I came into the world of suicide prevention after I attempted to take my life by jumping off of the Golden Gate Bridge. 7 months after my attempt, after what I would only call the worst day of my life, and the worst action I had ever taken, following that jump, it was an instant regret. I knew I'd made the greatest mistake. 7 months after my attempt and my survival, my back surgery, my recuperation physically, walking again, metal plate in my back, I was in church. And my father and I came out of the sermon, and the priest came out, and I'd known him my whole life, and he said, "Kevin, I'd like you to come talk to our kids on Good Friday." We're talking about grade school kids. Kids that some people don't believe need to hear this message or should at that age. And they took that risk. And I went in and I talked to 120 of these young people, and I talked to them about my personal experience. I was shaking during the entire presentation. I cried throughout of it, and I read it from the page. It was raw. 120 letters in return after that speech, several of which were suicidal. When I found that out, and I found out that they were given the mental health care they needed because those letters were screened because they were minors, I turned to my father and I said, "Dad, we have to do this, however, whenever, and wherever possible." And that's what my dad helped me do. And it grew into something that has become what it is today, traveling the world, speaking about suicide prevention and the art of living mentally well. I struggle every day. I have suicidal ideations on a regular basis. I have paranoid delusions, manic highs, depressive lows, all correlated with bipolar disorder. All of these things affect me, my family, my wife, but I wouldn't have it any other way because I get to be alive every single day. I'd like to turn the introductions over, if it's okay, to the great Kevin Briggs, a man who was my case manager when I went off the rail as a patrolman on the Golden Gate Bridge. He's a beautiful man, and he is my friend. Kevin?
Well, thank you, my brother. Thank you. My introduction to mental illness and suicides was before I was even born. My paternal grandfather lost his life to suicide, so mental illness from the start runs in the family. When I was young, 20 years old, had cancer. And as this got older, many things have happened to me. I was with the California Highway Patrol for over 23 years. Prior to that, I worked at San Quentin State Prison. And prior to that, I was in the U.S. Army. All these macho jobs where you just do not show weakness at any level. So these things build up on you. All these things that you see in these particular jobs build up on you. And I didn't let it go. They kept hounding me. So the cancer, I had a heart issue where I had to have 3 different surgeries on my heart. My job on that bridge was to prevent suicide. I spoke with well over 200 people who were attempting to jump off of that bridge. The vast majority I was able to help. A few, unfortunately, did jump off of that bridge. And when that happens, it's like a little piece of me went with them also. It just breaks your heart. So I'm extremely passionate about this subject, and I'm so glad to be here today. Kevin and I were just thrilled to get to do this.
Kev, we are so thrilled to have you here today, both of you, and have you in this country. And I know that you're both going to be travelling around doing a lot of discussions, and the assistance that you two will give to Australians will be exceptional, and we're so grateful. Kev, can I start off with you? We've had a question that comes in relating to emergency services, and they said if you could offer one piece of advice on how to support people in crisis to your fellow emergency service workers, what would that bit of advice be?
For emergency service workers responding to a call.
Yeah, first, yeah.
Very easy. Empathy, listening, and communication. Listen to understand. Listen not to respond, but with your heart. Listen to really see what's going on without an agenda, not to reply to what they're saying, but to take it to heart, to see what's going on with them. Empathy. Put yourself in their shoes. Try to. That'll give you a great understanding of what may be going on with them a little bit more. And communication. When they're not speaking, talk with them. Open-ended questions. Find out what's going on with them. It's vital.
In relation to emergency services workers, as far as their own care is concerned, a quick snapshot of advice for them, do you think?
Right. Self-care is crucial to your success. I have developed, for me personally, it works for me as my own quality of life triad, and it starts with me on the very top. My own self-care, my self-compassion. I'm not going to be right. I'm not going to do things. I'm going to make mistakes at times. It's okay. It goes on to my professional help. Who can help me? And that's anywhere from doctors to your gym instructor, to your yoga instructor, to your meditation instructor, all these folks. And last but certainly not least is your support system. Absolutely critical. Your friends, your family, your coworkers, people who you can rely on, people you can call any time of the day or night. So those three aspects are what I call my quality of life, and they've really helped me out.
Thanks, Steve. Liv, you had a question for Kevin.
Which Kevin? Hal?
Well, how about Kevin Hines?
Yeah, I've got some questions that have come in. Well, one big one, the issue of stigma is massive in this area. So, Kevin Hines, I just want to ask you, how can we reduce the stigma by talking about suicide and mental health issues? How do you see that working?
I think we can reduce the stigma when talking about mental health issues by first calling it by its original name, discrimination. Discrimination against those who live and suffer with mental diseases, discrimination against their families and loved ones, discrimination against them in the sense of trying to get equal parity for mental health coverage in insurance companies, and the discrimination now that with the parity bill that passed in America recently by Patrick Kennedy, that is being ignored by insurance companies. The laws on parity are being broken on a daily basis by insurance companies who aren't acknowledging those laws as base fact and giving the people who suffer like I do mentally, like Kevin has depression, the proper amount of help, and that the authorities, the powers that be, both in America and Australia, need to recognize that this discrimination can hurt and damage lives, and it can break down families because it is stigmatic and it is terrible. I think that if we can change the way we look at this problem and the way we attack stigma, and to look at all the people that are ignoring those who suffer and saying that that's just their problem. It's our problem. We are our brothers and sisters keepers, as I describe in my presentations. We are here for one another, and I think if all of us can recognize that mental illnesses are real, and those that have them who have been diagnosed can accept them as fact and take them on, fight them with every fiber of our being, but we can't do that unless our families and our support networks are right behind us, letting us know that it's possible and plausible, most likely, to live a good life while suffering mentally with a lot of hard work, dedication to your mental routine. What I do every day.
It's interesting that you say that because, see, insurance and healthcare over here is very different to in America. So personally for me, if I might add, I find a lot of stigma is more in the community and you know, being a young person and a young person who was facing some mental health issues, I felt a lot of stigma out there. I don't know if that was self-imposed stigma or stigma of other people, but I felt like me going through that, you know, what I went through was somehow wrong. And I know, Al, you have faced stigma in the workplace too. Part of your story involved quite a bit of stigma. So would you like to tell us a bit about how you felt stigma and how you think it can be combated in the workplace?
Yeah, I mean, my involvement in my police career goes back many years ago, and at that stage the stigma of mental illness was at epidemic levels, I would suggest. So back then, if you disclosed that you were suffering any form of mental illness or any trauma, then essentially your career path was, and that's how my career did end, was the fact that no chronic depression. And despite not having applied for any form of discharge, because I didn't want to be discharged, I was essentially forced out of the police force. So the level of stigma was terrible then. I believe that the stigma, there is still stigma in our society about suicide and mental illness, and that's part of our role with the agencies we volunteer for, to reduce the stigma. The goal is to break that. It becomes part of our normal daily life to talk about what is really affecting our physical health, what's really affecting us, our mental health, and to open the dialogue. And that's so great about what we're doing today. We're just all talking about this terrible issue, and we want to do something about it. I know the four of us in this room are just so passionate about trying to start and trying to change lives. We've just been inundated, so it is just fantastic. Thank you so much. Absolutely brilliant. We've had, I think, over 400 persons registered today. The numbers keep growing. And it shows that people really care about what we're trying to do today and from this day forward. Kev Hines, if I can ask you a question, mate, are there aspects of lived experience that we shouldn't talk about in the community to reduce the risk of harm?
Sorry, Kevin, I'm just going to interrupt you. Your microphone's gone dead, so we might ask a question to somebody else and come back to that question. Yeah, we're going to get somebody in to come and change that.
Kevin Briggs, do you think that the issues we're talking about today obviously don't only relate to Australians? I would suggest they also relate to the United States of America?
Worldwide. Absolutely.
Correct.
Worldwide.
Yeah.
Worldwide. The stigma we're talking about, the extreme disapproval of a person or group by other members of a society. That's the definition of it. In ancient Rome, if you did the suicide, if you committed, and I don't like to use that word, if you committed suicide, it was against the law because they could no longer collect taxes on you. And it's gotten a little better, but that stigma is still there. So we're working feverishly on this. It's like cancer. It's something that needs to be treated. And if not treated, it can get worse.
And I know that you've had a lot of experience with the military in the United States of America, the veterans over there. Both you guys are doing exceptional work with them. Do you see parallels amongst the first responders, the police, the paramedics, and the military? parallels amongst the as to the causation of suicide areas?
Absolutely, absolutely. For one, we can start. Those guys in the military, you're gone for long periods of time. With firemen and police, a lot of times we may not be gone long periods of time, but we do many hours. We're away from things. The things that we see as police and firemen on this side, the horrors that we see, not even on a day-to-day basis, but these things put bricks on your back, as I like to call them. And all these things build up through the years. So if you have all these bricks on your back, it's going to weigh you down. It's going to disrupt your quality of life. If you don't do something to get those bricks off of your back, like for cops, for instance, our lifespan after we retire is generally 5 years because we did not work on ourselves. So with the military, the horrors that they see, we're not supposed to see these types of things, and it weighs on you heavily. The PTSD we keep hearing about, but it's real, it's there, and it can devastate your life.
Kev Hines, we've talked about this, I think, a symptomatic issue that people who become suicidal generally experience similar emotions. And I'd suggest that they are these and worthlessness and a belief in yourself that you just can never ever get better and never overcome these feelings. You can never overcome the agony of this intense pain experiencing. I think that those feelings are experienced by both young and old in all forms of life.
These experiences do not discriminate as people do with stigma. They don't discriminate amongst people of all walks of life, every ethnic background, every socioeconomic background. They can happen to anyone and everyone. And when people get to the point where they think, oh, it couldn't happen to me or my family, that's incorrect. One of the things the Bridge Rail Foundation did, founded by my father, Pat Hines, to put up the net at the Golden Gate Bridge, one of the things they did was put a list out of the then 1,500 people who had died off the Golden Gate Bridge. And if you looked at this list and went to the entire thing, what they did was they put a list of their occupations. And every occupation, I think around the world, at least nearly, was represented in that list. So it can happen to anyone. Anyone can succumb to the depths of depression that lead to suicidal ideation. And so that's why it's a public health crisis problem. It's everyone's problem because it is leading to the destruction of so many important lives, and each of one of those lives is valid and deserves to live and have the proper mental health treatment and care in their area readily available for them because they are crucial to the well-being of not only their communities, but this planet.
We hear the statistics that between the age of 15 and 44, we lose more people in that age group in this country to suicide. Kev Briggs, is that a sort of similar age group that is being experienced in the United States of America, but also other West countries in the world, do you think?
It is. And actually it's a little higher. It depends on where it's at. On the Golden Gate Bridge, for instance, we have been seeing a lot more teenagers. But overall, the 25 to 44-year-olds, that seems to be where we see our most problems at. But
okay,
I do believe it's where you live, what's available, what's going on. In the poor communities, you see a lot of young folks.
Gentlemen, and Hayley, do you think that by simply today we're talking about this issue of suicide, we need to be the driving force to open up this discussion and peel back the layers of this taboo subject that's been there for so long, of suicide and the stigma of suicide? Is it something that's going to help if more and more and more people talk about it, not only in their private lives, their public lives, their professional lives? Is it something that should be just raised up the flag and saying, here it is, it's a real life situation, it's a life and death situation, let's everybody talk about it? Your comments on those points?
When you look at the change in the world of breast cancer over the last 30 years, breast cancer was a term that nobody said 30 years ago, or wanted to say, or shared with anybody else before they died and perished of it. They kept it quiet, and their families kept it quiet. And look at today, where where the breast cancer associations of the world raise millions and millions of dollars because of their openness, honesty, and all of the people in the fields of breast cancer reduction fighting to solve that problem. That's exactly what we need to do with mental health. It's exactly what we need to do with suicide prevention. Bring it out to the open forum and have thousands of people come and march together, like the overnight walks in San Francisco from AFSP, march together and change the globe with funding for all mental health organizations. It hasn't quite hit that tone yet, but we have an opportunity here, especially on this webinar here today with these great people, is to tell the truth and to get people to tell their truths, because it will change the life of someone next to you who just didn't have the gall, the gumption to talk about their problems. And the day after we talk, then they open their minds. Today, even at the conference we were just at this morning, a young man approached me and said, "I feel like I can finally talk about what I'm going through."
I think tied into that too, Kevin, is the fact that with cancers and the taboo that it used to be to have cancer, there was a sense of shame. And reading through what the participants are talking about online, I just want to highlight something that Natasha P. has written. She wrote, "The attitude that someone who takes their life is selfish is so prominent, I notice." And I think that people are, reluctant to talk about this sort of a thing because it gives them that identity that, because you've attempted to take your life, you didn't care about the people around you. But I think a lot of people in that suicidal place, I know it was particularly true for myself, I didn't want to burden those around me. So, the fact that people assume that it's a selfish act, it couldn't be more wrong.
Right. And going back to what Kevin was saying, this starts at home. This communication, this effort, ground zero, starts at home, and it doesn't start with around the dinner table with everybody there. It starts on a one-on-one basis, and parent to child, peer to peer. It starts at the ground level, to taking care of our own with the family, and then it extends after that. So we need to get back with our own families and friends, see what's going on. Are they just having a bad day, or is it something that needs professional help? But we're not going to know unless we get this head on, normalize their feelings, and that's absolutely huge. Let them know this pain that you're in. Many people going through what you are have experienced that same type. It's okay to talk about. So we're going to start this at home level and expand it from there.
Kevin Hines, you speak so openly and so honestly and so courageously about your experience with suicidality, your earlier life. How do you think the lived experience that you've gone through can assist, and who've had a lived experience of suicide, can assist reduce suicide in today's world?
I think the lived experience can assist people to bring open their woes and worries and pains and struggles with mental instability, because we are humanizing what depression and suicidal ideation is. It's not from a textbook, from a doctor. It's coming from the horse's mouth and saying, I have this. I go through this every day. This is my life's experience, and this is important to share with everyone. Not every person with lived experience should or has the ability to tell their story so openly as I do. I've made that cognitive decision. And I made it a long time ago. And I made it because the first time I spoke, there was a great effect of change. It wasn't because of my story. It wasn't because I'm Kevin Hines. It was because lived experience stories give people the opportunity to look deeply inside themselves, find correlations with that person's lived experience, find a relatability, and say, wow, I think I'm going through something similar, and now I can go to my doctor and tell the truth. I was in New Bern, North Carolina some years ago at a Marine base at Camp Lejeune, and a Lance Corporal approached me, he took off his rank pin, his chevron. He put it on my lapel, and he said, "I was going to kill myself today. Will you walk me to my commanding officer? I don't want to die." And that was because of a story told that hit his heart. And if we can share these stories and hit people right in the heart and get them to say, "I'm hurting, I'm in pain, and I need help," and asking for help is okay.
We've talked a lot about suicide attempts and people that maybe have facing suicidal ideation. I'd like to turn the conversation now, though, to families who are supporting these people and people bereaved by suicide. So, this is just to anybody who wants to answer on the panel. What is the best way that we can support families, and what is the best advice that you can give people who are caring for those who are suicidal?
Yeah, go ahead, Kev. Yes.
I have notified families of this tragedy, and it is absolutely horrible what these folks go through. When a parent loses a child, for instance, that is the worst thing that could possibly happen to them. After that state goes on where the anger, the sorrow, all these stages they go through, there needs to be a time of healing, of support. What can we do for them? There are a lot of support groups out there, unfortunately, as it is, for folks who have lost loved ones. And I've been to these and been in that circle. They've allowed me to be in this circle to where they share their thoughts, their feelings, and they hug. They feel so much better. The loss, the grief is there. That support system for them is just critical.
I think it's also imperative that parents are educated about the issues of adolescent suicidality. I think it's imperative that parents are educated about signs and symptoms that may be precursors to horrific and traumatic events that may take place. I think it's also critical that parents realise that because an adolescent develops depression, anxiety, or psychosis, that it's not something that can be fixed in a couple of days or a week or a month or whatever. It may take years of continual support, roller coasters of highs and lows of emotions, terrifying consequences. It is a toughest raging ever to have an adolescent who's going through a suicidal phase of their life. And I think we need to be very, very conscious of this and the cumulative effect of what that does to the family. And we need to provide support to that family in the best way we can through support networks, psychiatric advice, psychological advice as to what you're going to experience, so you know it's coming and you can help prepare yourself for the nightmare road ahead. But I think it's also cool that we have stories of recovery so that we can give hope. And I think for all of us here to experience those emotions of hopelessness, to have people who've had a lived experience that can give a story of recovery, it just gives hope. And sometimes when you're feeling so hopeless, to have any indication of hope is something to hang on to, that little input to survive. Kev, sorry, Charlie.
I just want to jump in now. You spoke about educating parents about, adolescent suicide. I have a bit of an issue with that. See, my mum, she's a health professional, or she works in the health sector, and she is very aware of mental health issues. And she brought me up to be aware of mental health issues too. But see, when I was going through my depression and I became very angry with her, and I would push her away. And she said to me, since I've become vocal about my experience, she said, "What could I have done differently, Hayley? I tried so hard." She would even, I went through an eating disorder, and she would come and sit in the bathroom with me after I'd eaten a meal, just to make sure that I wasn't, trying to engage in eating disorder behaviours. She tried really hard, and education wasn't enough. I think we put a lot of pressure on parents to be the sole carers for these children who are experiencing problems. I think it needs to be bigger than that. I think, like I said earlier, schools are a great point of contact to help these children to be able to cope with what they're going through. And I don't think I would have spoken to my mum about what I was feeling. Perhaps if it was more acceptable to seek help when I was in school, maybe that would have made a difference. But yeah, I just find it a bit, I don't want to put too much pressure. What do you
Yeah, I think what I was referring to, Hayley, was the fact that we need to have resources available to parents to explain what life can be like and how this situation may affect family. And that way, the more knowledge you have, the better you are to deal with the consequences of these issues that tragically face so many adolescents in today's life.
And I guess the parents need support too in those situations.
Yep.
Did you have some?
I'd like to bridge the gap between the two of your points together, and that is to say that yes, the parents need more education, but so do the students. And I'm of the belief that we need to go into schools and utilize those districts, those school districts all around the country and even the globe, and go in around 4th, 5th grade, and have seminars that are mandated for parents and teachers and students and optional their families to come to these kind of organized events, so that at 4th and 5th grade, when kids can comprehend what it is to live with mental struggles, they can be educated along with the entire community around that school about how to look out for potential crisis, maybe not necessarily suicidal ideations, but certainly crisis, and look out for pain and be right behind those children, pushing them up when they are suffering in that kind of way and bringing everyone together. I think it's about time we bring the entire circle to the table and make it whole.
We are just so thrilled with the number of questions that are coming in, and we only wish we had all day to discuss this and answer all your questions, but we just want you to know that we so appreciate you today. Another question's come in, how do you support someone in crisis but not make them feel pressure by saying it better? How do we avoid shutting down the conversation? Kev, from your experience, how...
That's a great, fantastic question. Please do not say it will get better, because you don't know that. When they're over that rail, when I'm talking to someone, if I tell them it'll get better, I just created a huge distance between us. I don't know if it's going to get better, but I can certainly tell you, if you come back over where I'm speaking with you, at least you're going to have a chance. There's so much help out there that we can start once we know there's an issue. For kids, I know you may not want to talk to your parents. What about the school counselor, your coach, your teacher, somebody? But with that, you have to do something. And to say that, we don't say why. We don't say, don't do this to me. How could you do this to the family? You're shutting them down. Open communication, normalizing their feelings, and asking them, are you having thoughts of killing yourself? And if they say yes, be prepared for that. Don't panic. How could you do this to me? You're just going to ruin that conversation. Be prepared for what to say. Have some telephone numbers with you. If it's a crisis going on right then, call the police. They're there to help. So look at really what you're going to say. Go into this prepared to contact this individual and listen to them.
Kev Hines, your amazing wife is such a support for you. Marge, she's a beautiful lady. Do you think that having somebody who understands through, who accepts what you're going through and is prepared to stand by is imperative to long recovery and enjoying the quality of life that we all seek?
I absolutely believe that. And it doesn't have to be a significant other. It can simply be someone who you've known your life and you know who loves and cares for you, who has found the ability to empathize with your struggle and builds a groundswell underneath you to keep moving forward no matter the mental pain you're in today. And my wife certainly is that person. And before my wife, it was my father. And these two individuals gave me the strength that I did not have to keep going on so many occasions and so many times. My mother was the same way in some sense after some time. We found the ability as a family to say, okay, we didn't understand what you were going through, and we don't understand it today, but we are with you to experience it together because we love you. If you can find those people of all walks of life who are right there for you and have always been, you're lucky for it. And if you don't have those people, you want to build relationships so you can make those people or create that kind of a relationship with those people. It is possible, and it is amazing, and it has guided me to safety on so many occasions.
In addition to that, I can see a question has just come through from Linda M. She states, what if somebody who is suicidal has nobody? It can be very difficult when you're in that suicidal mindset to reach out and make those relationships. Can anyone offer insights on how to enlist those people? Because Kevin Hines, making relationships is a great tool, and thank you for sharing that. But yeah, what if you're in that mindset and you have nobody around you immediately?
Absolutely. I want to take that, please, for just a moment, because after I was in my third psychiatric ward stay, I wasn't allowed to go home. I had to enter into a home for the mentally ill, and then a subsequent home after that. And it was isolative. It was scary. It was painful. I was sad. I was depressed. I would become actively and chronically suicidal again. And I was not good in those homes in the beginning about making friends and support networks. But I was given treatment, and in that treatment, I ended up, as I am a social person, finding some people in that home who were going through similar things in different ways, and who we connected on that level. So if you are suffering right now and you believe you have no one, and maybe that's the truth, what I would say is to dig deep inside yourself and know how much the world cares for you. Look at it on a broader spectrum. You don't have to have that 1 or 2 or 5 or 7 people that have your back. But as long as you understand that you are a gift to this world, I think there's a way for you to find some hope and some glimmer of light at the end of that proverbial tunnel. I was in that dark place. I was living off of $3 a day, and it felt like nobody cared. And I found the ability in those places to say, okay, I'm going to care for myself. And every single day I woke up, and every single day I walked into the mirror of these homes in the bathroom, and I said, Kevin, I love you. You're a good person. Get through today. And then I would take a look at a picture that I carry around with me today of myself when I was 2 years old. This happy-go-lucky kid, he didn't ever want to die by suicide. He was happy. He was joyous. He was a good kid who loved life. I wanted to find that person again. And on the back of that photo, which I have laminated in my wallet today, it says, live for him. Live for him.
I think that highlights a lot of, a massive important issue, Kevin, that, often we can't find people to reach out to. So it's really important to find it within yourself. And that's something that's really helped me to become the person that I am today, to learn to trust myself. I think that a lot of power comes from having that self-belief and finding, the 2-year-old self who didn't believe in suicide or didn't think of suicide, and reconnecting with that. And there's a lot of power that comes from that.
We just had a few questions relating to Kevin Briggs' story and Kevin Hines' story, and unfortunately we just don't have the time today to hear their stories. But I urge you to Google their names, and you'll find TED Talks and various other presentations that are available online to listen and to see their stories, or that you'll share inspiration that they can both give to you. We've had some questions regarding to this this issue in the media where the deaths of well-known people by suicide is talked about, heavily in the media. What are your thoughts, guys, about Yeah, what happens in the media when a celebrity takes their own life?
Well, when a celebrity takes their own life, it's amplified. We live in a celebrity-infused and obsessed culture. We live in this culture today where celebrities are over-worshipped and over-scrutinized. And so when they or one of them dies by suicide, and the most recent one, of course, we can mention is Mr. Robin Williams. And when someone dies by suicide and they are in that limelight, people have felt connected to them in so many ways because of all of their body of work. And if they like their body of work, then they feel a kinship to those people. And when those people publicly pass away by suicide, die by suicide, it sometimes can affect in a massively overwhelming way for people who love that character. And so when that occurs, instead of having the huge amount of media put out the sensationalistic pieces of those stories, what we need to do is have the media take some responsibility for education. And instead of sensationalizing the heck out of these stories, they can come on and say, hey, here are the lifeline numbers. Here are the resources in all of your areas, and here is a resource point where we're taking calls or we're taking information on how to get you the care you need because of this impacting you so deeply, as opposed to getting on there and saying he died this way and she died that way, and really focusing on that negative and that pain, giving sometimes people who are watching some terrible ideas. And so it's time for the multi-mass media to recognize that they have a huge role to play in saving lives, a huge role. And once they can recognize that and recognize the media guidelines that are across this country and across America, they could have a larger role in augmenting the conversation.
In Australia, we do have some clear guidelines. Mindframe have clear guidelines on reporting suicides in the media. So if there are any media people listening and you are unsure about how to safely report suicide, look them up. It's Mindframe. It's a great resource.
Mindframe. Yeah.
and can I also say that because the interaction we experienced today, which is just overwhelming and just phenomenal, if you are interested in this subject, if you are passionate about it and you want to help, you want more information, please contact Suicide Prevention Australia. The Lived Experience Network is something really valuable to join into, and we would love to have you involved and to use your lived experience to help us learn more and to help educate our society more and to help reduce suicide. We've had some questions in regards to specific industries such as the mining industry and first responders about what can we do, how can we be proactive about reducing suicide. Hayley and gentlemen, do you think it's worthwhile to be able to address issues within the various industries and then provide speakers and guidance to help them reduce suicide in those sectors? Kev, can we start with you, please?
He's
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Kevin Hines.
I'll answer that. We were here 2 days ago for the mental health intervention team training for the police force in New South Wales, and the police force in New South Wales is training all of their officers over a period of time in mental health, not just for the people they serve, which is a high amount of the mental health community, but for themselves to make sure their officers are staying alive and staying with hope and staying on the job. And so these kinds of trainings are guiding folks who would otherwise not quite understand or comprehend or empathize with this kind of situation. And Kevin Briggs talked about it as he was a law enforcement agent, the tough macho feeling that comes along with this kind of outfit. Law enforcement, and now at least in New South Wales, they have piloted a program that is right now, right here, saving lives, and it's fantastic. And I'm of the opinion that this program, or a doppelganger of it, should spread around the world in police officers and law enforcement globally, because what I witnessed at this conference blew me away. It was a conference that I've been to conferences for the last 15 years on suicide prevention, and I will tell you this was my favorite, and I would say the best I've seen, because it brought everyone, all the stakeholders in suicide prevention and mental health to the table, and it got them to say, okay, they're doing something proactive, and it's changing things. It's changing things drastically in a great way. If we can take those kind of programs, spread them around the world, and share with people that we all have a responsibility here for prevention of those we love, those we care for, and those we don't even know.
And building on that, I was also at the conference, and yesterday they spoke about the fantastic work that's being done at the Gap with regards to security cameras and quick responses. Both of the Kevins, I know you have you have a connection to a hotspot in America for suicides. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on how we can remove means for suicide on these hotspots. You know, things like bridges.
Well, I will tell you that I've since my attempt in 2000 off of the Golden Gate Bridge. I met an organization called the Psychiatric Foundation of Northern California. I was on their task force to raise a rail on the Golden Gate Bridge. It did not work. And then shortly thereafter, the film The Bridge came out by Eric Steele about the deaths at the Golden Gate Bridge. It was terrifying, it was powerful, it was moving, and it was tragic. And then the Bridge Rail Foundation was founded by my father and 3 other gentlemen. And the Bridge Rail Foundation made a decision. They were going to see it through that the Golden Gate Bridge had a net or a rail to stop the suicides there if it was the last thing they did. And my father and these board members said, we have to do this, and the one thing we can't do is ever give up. There were 8 fights to raise a rail at the Golden Gate Bridge since 1939. They all failed because the bureaucratic district that ran the bridge shut them down. Now we are at a place where on June 27th of 2014, the net was approved, the finances were put into place. It will be, the bid is going out in March for the contracting, and the building will be done by 2018 of that net. We fought for that for 80 years collectively, 80 years of death, needless death of that bridge. The people, like myself, who went there to attempt to take their lives, did not know what they were doing. They were suffering internally so terribly that they led themselves to that impulsive action. And I would say that when you realize that a group of individuals got together with a group of mental health clinicians and organizations from around the world and said, we have to do this. When a family took 150,000 signatures from around the globe, every continent represented, and that those letters said to the Bridge District, raise the net now, and here we are. It's a massive accomplishment for all the people involved, but I will tell you that there is a lot of opposition still even today, and they are angry, and they don't want to ruin the aesthetics of a bridge. And as Kevin Briggs learned late in life, he said after he learned it, a bridge, aesthetics, or a life. What do we value more in this society, in all society? The beauty of a bridge or the beauty of one human life, your brother, your sister, your mother, your father, your friend? And so I think we're on the right track, and I think reducing access to lethal means on a massive scale is going to save lives around the world.
I think that, unfortunately, time ticked by too quickly, guys. We're going to have to wrap up pretty shortly, but we were all at the New South Wales Police Mental Health Conference on Tuesday, and I think for me, what I took so much out of, not so much it was the fact it was a police conference, but the stakeholders who got involved in that conference, Lifeline, the Black Dog Institute, the Are You OK Day, Sane Australia, Headspace, all these wonderful agencies have come together with the police to say, let's do something about this situation of people taking their own life. And gentlemen and Hayley, do you think, on a final, very, very quick answer, if you could please, do you agree that it is critical that we as a society and all the agencies work together to look at this issue and reduce suicide?
Thank you very much. Actually, I have for several minutes there with a bunk computer, so glad to be back. Anyway, this is not a issue for one company, organization, the Army, the Air Force, the police. Societal issue. We need to start at home with this and build this up. We are not going to get everybody together on this if we just say it's the policemen who have to do it, it's the doctors or it's the mental health care who has to do this. It's everybody's deal on this one. We all have to get together on this. We all have to learn. And you don't have to take classes on this. You can go online, punch in active listening skills to understand how to talk to people. There's so much out there that's for free. You just have to take a little bit of time to investigate this. Do it for yourself. Do it for your family. You will save a life.
Well, do you have something quick to say before we wrap up?
Really quick. Across agency-wide and organization-wide and company-wide, we need to come together, and we need to put, this is important, we need to put egos aside. You know, I know that a lot of suicide prevention organizations, mental health organizations are fighting for the same funding, and this is global, okay? And instead of going, oh, man, they got the funding and we didn't, well, you know, forget about them. Put your egos aside. There should be no egos in suicide prevention. We are all here for the same goal, and that is to help people stay alive. And that's what I would say about that.
Well,
you'll wrap up on that? That's
all we've got time for with the questions. I'd just like to remind everybody that if this has brought up some difficult emotions for you, there are the helplines available on your screen on the left panel. And please don't hesitate to contact friends, family, anybody who you feel comfortable talking to. And, you know, Lifeline is always there. So a huge thank you to our guests, Kevin Hines and Kevin Briggs, for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here. And I also need to thank our friends at the police force and Mates in Construction for assisting us to put this webinar on today. So, Al?
Yeah, look, I can't express my thanks enough to Kevin and Kevin for being here in Australia and bringing their wealth of experience, both from Briggs, your person who's been there saving lives. Kevin Hines, you've been through in your life and how you keep going, the credibility you give to this issue. And to you, Hayley, the courage that you show so regularly in your experience, what you've been through.
And your courage too, Al.
Oh, cheers. But I think that what we all need to do is we all need to care more about somebody from ourselves. And caring takes courage. And in this stage, we seem to have lost to care. Our lifestyle has seemed to have gone out of control. And I think that if we just have the courage to care for each other, to take that step outside your little boundaries that may be confining you, to look to ways and means, I am sure that you are going to make a massive difference to somebody's life. As we often say, it's not about changing lives, it's about saving lives. And all of us here today, us lived experience of suicide, want to do more. And I'm sure that everybody who's been involved today, you've shown such a deep interest and a deep passion for making changes, and you have contributed so much today. And we thank you so much for your involvement and your contribution.
So just on that, Al, that was a wonderful thought and sentiment. Thank you very much for sharing that. I'd just like to ask both the Kevins to share one thought from today to share with everyone that's joining us about how we can learn from lived experience. So Kevin Hines, would you like to answer first?
Sure. Hope heals. If you can find it, if you can grab it, if you can attain it, and you can, I did against all odds, you can heal.
Kevin Briggs?
Add to that, look at today, look at the last few days. Suicide Prevention Australia, law enforcement, Mates in Construction, all came together to talk about this. As a society, this is what we need to do. Kevin Hines, exactly. We need to put away these Egos destroy relationship, destroy communication. We are doing here with Mates Construction, Suicide Prevention Australia, and law enforcement. We come together like this. This is a perfect example of what we need to do.
And you know, for me, I can see you're right, Kevin Briggs. Partnerships are just absolutely essential when it comes to suicide prevention. You know, suicide makes us feel so alone, but when we bridge those gaps and we all work together and we share our lived experience, we can realize that, you know, everybody has a lived experience in some way or form, and it's going to be that learning from the lived experience that really makes a difference to suicide prevention.
And unfortunately, we are about out of top there. So once again, thank you from our hearts for what you have done to be involved with us today. And we all look forward to moving on from today and making this a bigger and better issue for us to be involved with. Thank you so much.
Thank you all to all the participants as well. You haven't gone unnoticed. We've been watching your thoughts coming in. So thank you very much for participating and for sharing your thoughts. And if you do have any more questions, as Al said, email them to the Lived Experience email address, and yeah, we'll get back to you.